Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us. Thank you all again for joining us for our Fall into Action webinar. If you have joined us in the past, you know in earlier webinars, we focused on exactly what an SBOM is, or a software bill of materials. It's an ingredient list of the software components inside your application. And so today we're actually taking the next step because the real question isn't just what is an SBOM? Now it's I have one and what do I do with it, right? So think of this session as your interactive playbook. You won't just hear policy updates, you'll see how to put SBOMs to work. And by the end of this session, you'll walk away with practical steps you can use immediately to better understand your software supply chain and act with confidence. Next slide, please. Right, so before we dive in, I just want to remind everyone of a few housekeeping rules. This webinar is being recorded. We can actually go ahead and start that. And if you have to step away, no worries. Everyone who registered will receive the recording and slides after the presentation. We'd love to hear from you throughout the session, so be sure to drop your questions in the chat or the Q&A box at any time. And we'll also have some time at the end of our session to answer any questions you may have as well. By default, all of our participants are muted just to keep the audio clear for everyone, but please do engage in the chat, or you can also click the raise your hand button to ask a live question. If you experience any technical issues, just message us as well in the chat. Our behind the scenes team is ready to assist. Next slide. Now that we've covered the basics, I'll quickly introduce our speakers for today. My name is Latoya Taylor, if you don't know already, and I'm a manager here at the SIE Group. I'll be today's facilitator and just helping kind of tie together just key themes and questions that may come up. And joining me is Divelbliss from Eracent. He has deep expertise in IT asset management and software supply chain security, and he'll be leading today's demo of SBOM HQ. I know you all are really excited about that. I'm also joined by my colleague Stephanie Pepe from the SIE Group, and she works closely with agencies on operationalizing ITAM best practices. So this falls right into her wheelhouse. She'll be sharing insights into the practical steps organizations can take today and challenges they face with operationalizing SBOMs. So we're excited to have you both. Yay, yay. And we will continue on with the next slide. Our agenda for today includes a welcome and context. We are going to go into CISA's draft and why the update matters, and what we'll be covering with that. The CISA draft breakdown itself will provide you with CISA's new draft and give you some comparisons to the NTIA's 2021 guidance and how much it's evolved since then. Operationalizing SBOMs, again, those practical steps and common challenges organizations face. The live demo, which is like the main thing here that we want to show you all today, and it's simply just how Eracent's SBOM HQ ingests, normalizes, and manages SBOMs in real time. We'll also do some cost and resourcing, just some simple things to have you take away to your agency or organization to help you adopt SBOM practices at different scales. And last but not least, we'll have that Q&A and the next steps. Our awareness to action is what we're calling it. So that will provide you all with some open discussion and clear next steps. Alrighty. So next slide. We are actually going to get you guys engaged very early on in this webinar. We want to make sure that you all are engaging with us. So to get started, we want to just throw something out there for fun. Which fall tradition best describes your SBOM readiness? Are you at the carving pumpkin stage, still working out the details? Are you apple picking, gathering what you need? Raking leaves, cleaning up old processes? Football kickoff, ready to take the field. If it's something else, also let us know that in the chat. So just submit your questions now, or responses, I should say. All righty. And it looks like the majority of us are in that carving pumpkin stage, still working out the details. No worries, that's exactly what we wanted to see here. And if you are in that stage, you're in the right place because we have a lot of great information for you. And then the next poll question that we want to ask you is what best describes your role? So just look at these roles here. And then if you'd like, you can just select that particular role in the poll too. It should be coming up for you now. If your role is not listed here, just choose other and tell us in the chat as well. Alrighty, it looks like those polls responses are coming in. We've got some ITAM SAM team folks on the call, some vendor risk or supply chain management folks, as well as some people from auditor and compliance and legal. So thank you so much for participating in that poll. Your responses will really help us tailor our commentary. And if you're just beginning your SBOM journey or you're already well along, today's session will still give you a clear path forward. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and jump in to the meat and potatoes of this presentation here. So to kick things off, we're going to look at CISA's new minimum elements and what's changed since the original NTIA guidance. So first, I'll walk through that, and then I'll hand it over to my colleague Stephanie, and she'll take us into how organizations can begin operationalizing those SBOMs. And after that, we'll hand things over to Terry for our live demo. But this breakdown here, what you see is a setting the stage with policy landscape, right? CISA's new draft of the SBOM minimum elements builds on NTIA's 2021 guidance. And I'm saying that just so that you all will know that it has evolved over time. And these updates do include more detail being required. So that's going to give you richer SBOMs that go beyond basics. It also focused on the comprehensive component information that goes into those SBOMs. We want to look at the consistency of formats now. So they're wanting to make sure that SBOMs can actually be compared and consumed. And that will lead to more standardization across vendors. And then real world integration, right? That's designed to plug into operational workflows. We want to make sure they're actionable and not just informational. And you're asking, so why does all that matter? So we've learned a lot from past incidents, right? We've all seen hidden vulnerabilities in open source libraries like Log4j in 2020. There were hidden vulnerabilities right there in the open source libraries, rippled globally, you know? And then SolarWinds, right? They had the supply chain compromise with the massive impact. And these updates, you know, are about avoiding kind of that next SolarWinds incident. And so the solution that CISA has is to provide, you know, the public now with updates to help organizations avoid that next major incident through better visibility and faster response. So if you would mind just taking another quick poll here, just to kind of get a feel for just a brief overview of those updates. And what part of that draft feels the most challenging for your organization right now? Some of you may have not even heard about the new draft that's out, but there's still time. If you do need to go out there and look at it, you have until October 3rd actually to do so. So we definitely want to make sure that you feel a little more at ease about it and kind of get to see what your main issue or challenge is. And it looks like due to, do we have anyone who'd like to submit a response to the poll? Any takers? We can definitely, again, keep these challenges in mind as we move into the demo, because it may actually get your gears, turning to think about any other parts of that CISA draft.
Okay, thank you for that, Latoya. So moving on, we're going to go into operationalizing SBOMs. So having an SBOM is step one, but what do you do with it? Organizations are looking to solve three main challenges when operationalizing SBOMs. So the three challenges are vulnerabilities, such as components that have hidden flaws, obsolescence, outdated libraries that quietly remain in production, and licensing risks. So open source licenses that can create legal or financial consequences. The problem is scale. So reviewing dozens or hundreds of SBOMs manually isn't practical. What's needed is normalization, centralization, and automation. That's why platforms like SBOM HQ exist. So in addition to SBOM HQ, CISA has recently released a free secure software supply chain web tool that helps procurement teams assess supplier risk and integrate cybersecurity into the buying process. It's a great complementary resource for procurement professionals who want to strengthen software assurance alongside their SBOM practices. Moving on, we're going to throw in another poll here for you. So what is your biggest blocker to operationalizing SBOM say? Is it lack of tools, lack of expertise, poor SBOM quality from vendors, or you're unsure where to start? So let's just take a moment, complete this poll, and then once you complete that, this will be the perfect bridge into what Terry will show you next. Anybody wants to fill out that poll, we're going to leave it open for another minute and then we'll turn it over to Terry.
Looks like we did get a 50-50 response on that last poll. Lack of expertise and poor SBOM quality from vendors.
Okay, moving over to you, Terry.
Great, thanks, Latoya and Stephanie. I'm going to go ahead and drop off camera for a moment here while I pull up SBOM HQ. So SBOM HQ itself is basically the rebranded and highly expanded version of Eracent's SBOM Manager, and it's really designed to be the headquarters for all of your SBOM activity within your organization. So give me just one moment to share here. We'll be ready to go. Hopefully everybody can see the workspace screen here. Okay. So as I said, it's really the headquarters for all of your SBOM activity in your organization. I'm going to show you multiple perspectives of it. One of the things I'll look at that's new here, there are a couple things as far as creating SBOMs from scratch. If you're an application development team or if you have another reason to do that, that's new. We'll take a look at a few things around that. And also new to SBOM HQ that you're probably starting to hear about are SBOMs, the cryptographic bills of materials. And really, SBOMs allow you to verify other very specific things like encryption key lengths, certificate expirations, algorithm strengths, and other attributes. And honestly, this is really just as important as tracking vulnerabilities or licenses, and it's critical for compliance. So let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at the first area that we'll be working with. I'm going to go ahead and open up SBOMs here. The first thing is, let's go ahead and take a look. I get an SBOM from a publisher. because they're mandated to give me one, you know, as especially if you're in the government and defense sector in the US, they're required to give those to you. So what do? SBOM HQ is designed to be a repository. It's a repository on a very large scale for SBOMs that any enterprise will be getting, both from your application development teams and from your third-party publishers, you know, from whom you're buying products. So what we're looking at here really is, it's 45 SBOMs in here, but you know, this is really what a repository would look like, and this could literally go up to multiple thousands. It's scalable and proven to that level. But basically, SBOMs get uploaded here, and you're able to see them from many different perspectives of when we're put in. And I'll show you, we'll talk through each of these in just a moment. But I could literally, and what you're going to do most likely, because you're not going to get a tsunami of SBOMs all at one time, they're going to come in at a steady state. There's the ability to manually upload them. And I'll show the advantage of this right now. If I click this, I'm going to go in and find an SBOM that's been given to me. So let's go with this 76. These are all JSON files. So if you think about very similar to what, if you've done the ISO 19770-2, where you got the SWID, the software ID tags, and those are XML files. These are JSON files, very similar concept. And what I'm going to do is I'm selecting 76 here. Come on. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and upload that. So we're going to see what happens here as you're uploading them. And we think this is very important from a security and data access standpoint, but also from a filtering perspective, because if you do get thousands of SBOMs, you're going to have a lot of excess noise. And they might be things that are products or components that have nothing to do with you. So this is going to give you a way to keep these intact. So we can see right here that here's what the component is. We can see what the tool was to create the SBOM originally, and we can see that it was done in Cyclone DX format. And that's one of 3 of the major standards. Cyclone DX, which is the one that we prefer, but we can manage other ones as well. SPDX is one of the other major formats, and even you know, XML, there's other formats that are used, and that's part of what Latoya just spoke about with CISA locking down these standards to make sure that they're compatible, they work, and you can cross-reference them and so forth. So what I'm going to do is, you see here, you can put in who's my publisher. These are some default ones we put in, but obviously at some point you can have literally, you know, the actual publishers that they're coming from. Your line of business, I'm going to select phase 1, the application component. I'll go with that run me now. I will do this upgrade assistant, since that's a suggested one here, for the application module, which is really a product. And I'll do the version here as well, 3.3.3. Let's go with 2.0. And I could put a description in something like this was a September, oh, my bad, September 2025 release. If you need something, you know, with a description or a version in there, and I'll simply click confirm here. And remember, as I mentioned, you're not going to be dealing with a tsunami of these all at one time. So uploading these manually is not a real time consumer. You can see that that was just that quickly that JSON 76 is in here. And I can see information about it right now. I can see that it's not fully processed yet with the hourglass. Others here are fully processed. Let me bring up one point here, because some very important things happen here. I can see some check boxes here, which really will come up if I looked at these as partially processed. What that really means is it's ready to go. It's fully used. It's pulling in info from NIST and GitHub Advisory and other places, OSV and so forth. But what it means is typically there are a couple lines in here that are metadata or internal notes or things like that that would not be in the NIST or GitHub or other sources for them to look at and say, oh, we don't know what this is, but it is ready to use. All the important things have been uploaded, partially processed. If it has the green box around it, the processing is complete, meaning there wasn't any metadata or other information. 100% of the lines that were in the SBOM have been processed and ready to go. But the good news is either of these versions or either of these scenarios are ready to use. Upload status, we're still processing, but let me click on this since this is the one we just uploaded. I can see here again the file name, the description, all those attributes that I put in. It can see that I'm the one who uploaded it with some details. As far as processing goes, I can see here once again, like the hourglass showed, we are still waiting for full processing, but these are the things that are going to be taken care of once it's processed. These will be populated. Components, dependencies, anything that we know about it. You can even see here the cryptographic assets count, your SBOMs, all these things that are ready to go as soon as it gets fully processed in the system. Very importantly, one of our differentiators here, this is the original SBOM. If you've never seen what one looks like, it's very, very cryptic. Not much you can do with it like this. And therefore, that's why you really need a tool like SBOM HQ. What you're seeing here is the original SBOM, and you can see a button here for exporting the original, and there's also one to export processed SBOM. What that means is you have the original SBOM, but there are known deficiencies in a lot of these tools that create SBOMs. There's a lot of potential room for improvement. What we're able to do that we believe is a strong differentiator, we're very, very good at normalizing and correcting, doing error correction on SBOMs as they come in, because we have two things in our favor. First of all, we may say, wow, this is great, except there's no license type here. It's blank. We can say, but we've seen this component or this library before, and we know that it's strong copy left. So we'll fill in that gap, and it'll be populated as strong copy left. The other thing that we have is the ITpedia open source library that has millions of components and libraries in it with tremendous amount of detail about them. And if we see a blank, we can use that data source to fill these in. So bringing in the SBOMs at the beginning, you're not only processing them, but you are doing error correction and really fixing that quality where there may be gaps that were given to you by an application development team or the actual publisher, okay? So that's the process of getting SBOMs into the system. There's some key things that come up at this point. The fact that if I'm in government or procurement side of things, these agencies can really ingest these SBOMs that you get very, very quickly. You saw it took 2 minutes to get one in here. And also, if you use that in conjunction with CISA's new procurement tool, you're going to be able to run adaptive assessments in parallel. You're going to be able to generate summaries for your leadership. You're going to be able to get the SBOM analysis and the procurement assurance in a single workflow. And if I'm an application development team, obviously, you create or upload SBOMs. You're going to be able to see whether your generated SBOM and everything in it is complete before you release your product. You want to make sure that anything that's going out to your users, your customers, are actually safe, current, non-vulnerable, and ready to go. Okay. And as I said, this really is, I'll pop right back out to the screen we were in a moment ago. When you're looking at this central repository of all of your SBOMs like this, and we haven't drilled down into the good stuff yet, your central repository gives you a couple of things. It really answers the question of, once I have an SBOM, what do I do with it? And we're going to show a whole lot of that in the next few minutes. But if I'm an executive or I'm a CISO, the CISO can ask a very basic thing like, do we use OpenSSL? And you can very quickly see by filtering instantly whether you do or do not, and what SBOMs is it included in. If I'm a web developer, if I'm looking at NPM or JavaScript libraries, one bad package in there can really expose an application and make it vulnerable, and SBOM HQ will show you where that's used. And if you're in the ITAM or SAM team, and it appears there clearly are from some of the poll responses and people that I know are on the webinar, this really goes beyond software and licensing inventory and counting. This is really linking your software assets to the components and the licenses inside of them. And it makes the ITAM and the SAM teams an integral part of the whole software supply chain and the security that goes around it. So with that being said, let's take a look here. We're going to drill down and look at all the really good stuff now and how this is utilized to make you more secure. I clicked on library summary. We'll be taking a look at a lot of libraries here, and you can see that there are almost 4,000 of them in here. We're just going to look at the first 10 as our sample size here. So what we're seeing is a whole group of libraries here, and you're able to see a view of these right here from the start. What you're going to see, remember I talked about the filtering and the information you put in during upload. So demo, line of business again, phase 1, the application component. And you're going to see things changing a little bit, most likely, as I go through here. Phrase frame parent. Okay, yeah, you can see a couple things changed right there under obsolescence. And I'll go with the most recent version. There was a big change there. Let's look at a difference here real quickly. I'll talk about the reasoning for this. Right now, when I looked at all versions, got a lot of stuff with the worst known scenario, if you will, the EPSS score. You can see there are pop-ups here, the worst exploit prediction scoring system. What's the worst? How big of a mess could be made if one of these is vulnerable and gets hacked? Is basically what you're really looking at. These aren't great, but if I go and I say, let's get this down to the most recent version that we have, watch how much better it gets because we're dealing with new components and new libraries. That's a big difference right there just by filtering on the latest version. But let's I'll go back to the bad. Let's go back to the bad stuff just for the purpose of what we're talking about today. I can see right here all of my libraries. I can see right here what is the version that we're using right now in the second column and how old are they. These aren't the worst I've seen by a long shot, but none of these are toddlers at this point. These are pretty old and experienced library versions out there. But in comparison, I'm going to jump over obsolescence for a second. What's the newest version of these libraries that are out there in this column right here? And I can see that, wow, these are like really, really new. That makes a big difference. As I've said before, I'll give an example. There's one major IT service management company out there that has put out network control products. They have 2 of them that are known to be using libraries from 2002. What that means, current and they're obsolete, most likely, those 2002 libraries. They aren't necessarily a danger. At least none of these are shown in red here as being a real serious threat. But, you really want to be in the green. But what that basically says, even though you're using libraries from 2002, it doesn't mean they've been hacked or that they necessarily will be hacked. But I'll tell you what, I'd feel a lot better using these versions right here, the latest versions, where everything's in green, than these really old ones. And what's the reason? Right there, you're a lot less likely to get hacked with these new ones because somebody just used them, just put them out. They've looked at them. If you have those other ones that are 23 years old, maybe nobody's looked at them at all for ages, and hackers are looking for those kind of points of entry. So that's what's so important there. So with the obsolescence, moving on from the age of the libraries and versioning, obsolescence, we can see right again, these aren't current, but they're not obsolete. So those are in green. They're not current and they're obsolete. They're in yellow. If I dig around, if I went and opened this up to, 20 pages, we're going to see some reds in here where, basically you probably want to get these out. If you can do an upgrade, you'll want to do that. Okay. As I mentioned, the exploit prediction scoring system, these all look pretty darn good. Even 18% is not bad. 93.37, that's not great. You probably, once again, want to move this up as a priority. Is there a way to upgrade the product? Is there a way to, our app dev team needs to rewrite something in order to get newer ones here? But weirdly, very importantly, even though this isn't a high risk score, it does have two critical vulnerabilities. That's what we're looking at here, the actual vulnerabilities that are known, that are reported by NIST, or that are reported by, by GitHub, OSV, Maven, other sources that are providing this from around the world. Critical vulnerabilities, high vulnerabilities, medium, low, no vulnerabilities, and what's the total number of vulnerabilities at that point. Okay, so you can see obviously they're color coded. They give you a very quick at a glance. There's a total risk score coming into play in this column. We're going to look at mitigation in just a minute, and that's another very important aspect of SBOM HQ. The last thing we'll look at here in a moment is the license types. I think all of these were probably still in the green. Let me go back to all versions. Yes. So I've gone back to all versions. The license types themselves for open source, if you're not aware of them, there are what are called permissive licenses. With a permissive open source license, I'm allowed to use those libraries and components just about any way I want. I can take them out. I can change them and edit them. I can share them. I can put them into a product that I'm going to share or even sell commercially. And there's no big deal. The authors and developers of that have given you a free license, no pun intended, to go ahead and run with those. There are going to be others, though, that we would show in yellow or in red that are higher risk, far more restrictive licenses like copyleft or strong copyleft. And once again, we'll show those in red or at a minimum in orange to let you know. With a restrictive license, risk management teams want to know about this, and I would imagine that any application development team leaders would as well. If I have one of those licenses that's restrictive, a couple things happen there. The developers basically say, you can use it, but you can't change it. You can't put it in software that you're going to share or sell commercially. You need to credit me and maybe my team in very specific ways. You almost think of like movie credits at the end. This was done by so-and-so on this date, and we give them all credit and we salute you. They basically ask for very, very strict and structured credit for what you're using. If not, they could financially sue you and legally sue you. So there's financial and legal risk there. They could technically sue everybody that you gave it to and ask them to remove it. They could even request all the IP that you built or that you bought from a third-party vendor and spent a fortune on. They could say, yeah, you got to give us your software. In worst case scenarios, we talk about it internally. If Eracent used a strong copyleft library in our own code, we always talk about how a competitor could come to us and go, hey, we see that you used strong copyleft code, and according to the terms here, you have to, we would like to see your IP. You hand it over. And there's really not much you can do about it because it's right there in the terms and conditions for those types of licenses. So if you're on the call here and you work in risk and compliance, you probably want to take that under consideration. All right, so I'm going to select a version here for another reason. And if there are any questions on this or things you'd like me to cover as a follow-up, please, go ahead and put those in the chat. But I'm going to go ahead and pull up the most recent version again. What I'm going to do here, I talked about mitigation. Let me see if there's anything I need to bring up here. Yeah, so with our example here, so a couple things, basically on what I talked about here with the drill downs. If I'm a security team and I'm looking at this, after Log4j, after that whole incident and the SolarWinds and the XZ Utils backdoor incident last year, teams spent days or weeks even searching for, oh my God, do we have Log4j? Where is it? But at this point, 5 years ago, SBOMs weren't really being used for cyber purposes. But if it was, by using SBOM HQ, the next time some kind of vulnerability happens, you're going to very immediately be able to see, do we have that? What's the mitigation and where do we need to go to fix that? Your response time is going to be so much faster. If I'm a web developer in this case, you know, if a JavaScript package has a 0 day that happens, same kind of thing, you know, SBOM HQ is going to show you exactly what applications use it, and you'll be able to drill into the CVEs and see whether there's a patch ready. And if I'm an ops team, you know, I'm going to be able to basically prioritize my patches by the level of risk. You're not going to manually hunt, so you'll be able to use, you know, the highest criticality, the EPS scores, things like that, to prioritize your patching and your upgrades. So I want to talk about the risk score mitigation next. That'll be one of the last things I'll go into in this demo before we move along. I'm going to click here. I believe I have everything I need to see. I can see that there are these critical here on the risk score. I'm going to go ahead and go into the library. Then what this is going to do is pull up both of those vulnerabilities that are shown as critical. I can see here two things. I could go into the GHSA, or I could go into the CVE for this one. And if I click them, I don't think it will share, but it takes you right to the page on the NIST site. In the case of the CVE, and it'll tell you these are the conditions under how this is vulnerable. So the example I like to use is maybe there's condition A and condition B. If you meet both conditions, you're vulnerable. If it's just A or just B, you're okay. And I look at this and say, wow, that's my whole job in cyber is to try to bring down our corporate risk score. And we'll look at those in the dashboards in a minute. It's a 9.3, but I might say, wow, we only use it under condition A. Condition B, we're fine. So I think our score should be a 5. I'm going to propose a 5. So I'm going to go ahead and click the risk score here for this particular vulnerability for this library. Oop, wrong thing came up. And click this score. Andrew, oh, here it is. All right, I got to the right thing on the second click. Okay, I didn't want to have to phone a friend on that one. What I'm seeing here, you should be able, Latoya, can you confirm that you see the proposed mitigated score pop up?
I do, Terry, and you also have a question in the chat.
Okay.
From Mr. Evan McClure. He's asking, oh, do you see it?
I do not, but go ahead. I'm staying in the
yeah.
demo, but
It
feel
says,
free to share that, and hopefully I can answer it for you.
Yes. Mr. Evan asks, hi, is that actually the same vulnerability from 2 different sources, or how does the system deduplicate vulnerabilities from multiple sources?
Okay, that's a great question. In this case, I believe that's an excellent question, and I might need to go to one of my SMEs, and they're on the call here. Let me circle back to that one. I believe in this case, it's 2 separate vulnerabilities. I can take a look here, but that's a great question too on deduplicating. I don't know, and I'll come back to that screen in a second. Let me take a look. If I go to the GitHub advisory database, the vulnerability details, it's Spring WebFlux applications that have Spring security authorization can be bypassed under certain circumstances. So let me close that one. And let me look at what the CVE one is. That's a great question. And this one under the CVE is actually in this case the exact same vulnerability. So that's a tremendous question. I'm going to ask I know I have at least one of my product managers on the webinar. If one of you would be kind enough to go to chat and perhaps drop an answer in there, if you know what the dedupe, are we deduplicating? Would we show them both because they're from 2 authorized sources? Maybe I'm a user that trusts NIST more than GitHub. That might be a case, but that's the answer to your question. It is the same vulnerability coming from 2 independent global sources. And quite honestly, I would feel good about it if multiple sources and organizations are finding that same vulnerability, because the alternative is to scratch your head and go, wait a second, why aren't the other guys seeing that vulnerability and only NIST is reporting it or only GitHub? So if anything pops up in the chat in response, Latoya, please let me know. But that's a great question. I appreciate you asking that, and I just learned something myself, to verify that. So thank you. So what I'm going to do again is go into that risk score of 9.1 here. And what I'm able to do here is if I said, I don't meet both conditions for how that bypass works, and I think my score, I'd like it to be a 5. I'm going to propose that, and I'm going to only use condition A, not B. Oh, darn it. Keep doing that. 5.0, we use, there we go, condition A, not B, not at risk. What I can do is once I put this in, I could click mitigate score. It does not automatically mitigate it. This will immediately send a notification to a CISO, to your risk management team, to somebody who's authorized to either approve this by saying, you know what, we could defend this at a 5 based on what I see here, and I can approve it, or I can look at it and say, you know what, this is a big one as far as the criticality and what could happen if it does go wrong. I prefer that we stay at a 9.3, and then they could reject it. But you have this capability to bring your scores down internally, organization by organization, by submitting the mitigation here. Okay. All right. So that's one of the main things there. So, you know, with the mitigation, we're good there. One of the things to look at here before I move on to the dashboards is what you're really doing is when you have the mandates. I know a lot of you, if you're in government or defense agencies, if you're in banking, finance, or insurance with DORA or the New York State DFS 500, you're required to meet these mandates. And by using SBOM HQ, it's obvious that you're doing steps with intent to comply with those mandates without a doubt. So, you know, if you're in government and healthcare, you know, you're really showing your regulators, you're not just collecting the SBOMs from publishers because the executive order says you have to, you're actually managing them and doing something and benefiting from them. And, you know, and if you're an auditor too, you're going to be able to deliver some pretty, you know, consistent and trustworthy records and results. Instead of having manual spreadsheets, you'll be able to show them and generate them from here. So let's take a look. The last thing I wanted to show, I could go on and on and on, but let's keep this sort of brief. There are dashboards in here. I can see an overview dashboard. Once again, and here's where the filtering comes in. Not much showing here yet. But if I select the same publishers like we did before, you can watch this grow. Phase 1, the Run Me Now, the application module being the phase frame parent. And once again, I'd like to go to all versions once again. And you're able to see a whole lot of things here, you know, as far as, you know, what's contributing to the vulnerabilities, what's our historical risk score, our vulnerability scores and worst case licensings, and drill down into those. But here's that calculated risk score I talked about. You're not in the red, so you're in pretty good shape. You're not in the green, so you could be better, but at least it's starting, you know, it's moving to the left. And that's the goal when you do those mitigations, or you patch and update and upgrade, you know, looking at prioritized ones that are most critical, your calculated risk score should move to the left. If I go back to the dashboards again, sorry, could be a better navigator, but I'll go back to dashboards. And if I looked at the vulnerability overview, this is the last one that we'll look at here for the terms of the demo. I can come in once again, and you'll see once again how the filtering really works. It makes a difference without a doubt. Run Me Now, phase frame parent, and I'll go once again to all versions. And you'll see, you know, if I went to just the newest version, I think it's going to be a lot more green. Maybe not that huge of a deal, but you'll see once again, what are the most, you know, the biggest vulnerabilities and what level they're at. You know, an aggregation of all your vulnerabilities. What are the most infected and critical application modules that you'll want to update as soon as possible, the libraries that are the worst, and your vulnerabilities. You can see right here that from, you know, even a week ago or days ago, we're actually making progress because our number of vulnerabilities in application modules are going down pretty rapidly from, you know, 140 down to where are we at, 100 maybe. So you can see that over time. So those are the kind of things that SBOM Manager is going to be able to, you know, really show you. If I'm in audit and compliance looking at these, you know, basically the auditors want evidence your SBOMs are being tracked and the dashboards prove it. And the vendor risk managers, as we were just talking about, you want to compare you have the opportunity really to look at your SBOMs across publishers and be able to see which ones are giving me risky components and which ones really aren't. Who's doing their QA homework at this level. So bottom line is your SBOM HQ, as I just showed, really turns the SBOMs that you get from static documents into really living and actionable assets that you can utilize. So whether you're in government procurement, a CISO, a developer, ITAM and SAM teams, the risk and operations teams, or in just a regulated sector like utilities and banking and insurance and healthcare, this is going to give you the visibility and a way to act. Okay. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and stop sharing the demo. Stephanie, over to you.
Thank you, Terry, for going through that. So one of the most common questions we hear is, what does it take to resource this? So let's break that down. There are 3 pillars to consider. The 3 pillars are tooling, people, and integration. So in terms of tooling, platforms like SBOM HQ provide the automation, normalization, and analytics that make SBOMs usable. In terms of people, clear ownership and accountability for SBOMs is critical. Who is responsible for managing and ingesting them into the system? Who responds when a vulnerability or a license issue is flagged? And in terms of integration, SBOMs don't live in isolation. The real value comes when you connect them to ITAM, SAM, security, and procurement workflows. Adoption can start small and it can scale over time. So here's a way to think about it. So we're going to look at 3 different levels here. So level 1, for example, let's say is the pilot. One program or team using SBOM HQ to validate and analyze SBOMs from a handful of vendors, minimal staffing, limited scope. Think small. Level 2, in terms of departmental, so multiple teams or departments, scaling processes, adding reporting and audit readiness into the picture. And lastly, level 3, enterprise-wide. So central repository for hundreds or thousands of SBOMs connected across ITAM, SAM, cybersecurity, and vendor risk. Full lifecycle management, enterprise dashboards, and an ongoing ROI.
A little bit of context behind that, Stephanie. The investment here is really not just about cost, but it's about value and then your risk reduction, especially if you can think about it this way, that your tooling costs would be predictable. So if you license SBOM HQ, it's really a fraction of what, an audit failure or a hack or a compliance fine or the security incident, could really cost you. And then the people cost that you just spoke about too can really be, in many cases, absorbed into existing roles. A lot of times we'll see ITAM or SAM or the vendor risk teams that take on the SBOM ownership, and you can do that with minimal new headcount, once the tooling's in place. I guess the last part of that would be really the integration cost. That's really going to depend on the scope overall within your program, your number of SBOMs, and your general size of things. But your return on investment is going to be huge. As we said earlier, when Log4j hit, some organizations literally spent weeks and millions in staff hours, financially chasing the answers that they needed to get that mess cleaned up. And as I said, with SBOM HQ, if tools and SBOMs were being used, at the time for cyber, the organizations would have known almost immediately what their level of exposure really was, really just in minutes, and their mitigation response time would have been really drastically shortened from what it turned out to be. So how much do you really want to invest then moving forward? It really depends on where you want to be on that maturity curve that you talked about, going from pilot to enterprise. At the pilot level, it's a pretty modest investment. You're talking about one team utilizing SBOMs, one budget line, and one tool. When you get to the enterprise level, you're definitely going to invest more. But what you're doing is you're building a sustainable framework that basically is an ongoing level of protection to prevent, any kind of costly disruption. You're going to prevent your compliance penalties that we talked about. And one of the other things, it's not just financial, but it's the reputational damage of being outed, in the news to the world, that you didn't do all you could have, and now everybody's information is out there, or their payment was Their payment information was exposed, things like that. So the main takeaway here really is no matter where you start with this, the cost of not doing it is much, much higher. A single breach or an audit failure or a utility that goes down for any period of time, that can really dwarf the cost of adoption in getting this done.
Exactly. And what we want everyone to leave with today is a sense of what level makes sense for you right now in this moment and how to budget for growth in the years ahead. Again, adoption can start small with one program and scale enterprise-wide with significant ROI by avoiding compliance failures and reducing risk. So with that, let's move on. We're going to take another poll to find out where folks are in their SBOM journey. So where are you on your SBOM journey? Are you just exploring concepts, building early processes, actively implementing, or looking for optimization tools? Let's take a moment and fill that out.
We'll give folks another moment to answer that last poll that you see here on the screen. Looks like we have some folks who are just exploring the concepts, which is perfectly fine. All right. Any other responses? No? All right. We'll go ahead and move on to the next slide, please. So, oh, and we got another response. Thank you. Just exploring concepts. Thank you. If there are any other questions as we wrap up, we can go ahead and you all can come off mute or use the raise hand icon. Looks like Terry did an amazing job with that demo. If we don't have any questions, again, thanks to Evan for that great question earlier about the deduplication of vulnerabilities. And it looks like we did get a response from the Eracent SMEs there. So thank you for that.
Oh, great. Okay, I saw that there was a thank you from our question asker. So great. Thank you to whoever that was.
All right. Well, if there aren't any other questions, I guess we'll move on and just wrap up. We're going to bring it back to what you can do next, right? This is our kind of awareness portion of the session. There are 4 clear actions that we're going to encourage you to take now. The first one, again, is to engage in CISA's open comment period. Again, that draft is available for the public and industry to respond. The deadline is October 3rd. And again, your input really shapes this new SBOM policy. The second action is to assess your organization's readiness. Where are you today and what gaps remain? Make sure that you get a full current state evaluation to fully understand where those gaps are. And we're also inviting you to explore more with SBOM HQ. I know you got a little bit from the demo, and as Terry mentioned, he could go on and on about the amazing things this tool does. And with the SBOMs too, that we didn't unfortunately have information to share with you, but just really excited about that. We really want you to reach out if you'd like to see how this platform can fit into your environment and give you that immediate value. And last but not least, of course, stay connected on SBOM policy and community updates. You can follow us here at the SIE Group and Eracent, and we'll definitely keep you informed and help you prepare for what's next. And again, I know Stephanie mentioned this earlier, but there's one more resource that we really want you to take back to your teams today. It's free. That's right. FREE, free 99. It's CISA's new supplier response web tool. It's ready to share procurement summaries. It's got risk-informed assessments, adaptive evaluation processes, and then it's perfect complement to SBOM HQ. So if you're ready, you want to take advantage of that, you can definitely go to that website and strengthen your procurement process while building SBOM capabilities. All right, and we're going to take one last poll here as we wrap up for today. We really just want to get your feedback now. In this poll, if you haven't had a chance to respond to any of the other ones, we really want you to respond to this one, just naming which of these next steps resonates the most with your organization right now. Are you ready to engage in CISA's open comment period, assess your organization's readiness, explore SBOM HQ, use CISA's supplier response web tool, stay connected with Eracent and the SIE Group, or if it's something else, let us know as well. Thank you, Evan. All right, we've got some folks who are willing to stay connected on SBOM policy and community updates, so that is wonderful. Right, and before we actually close, Terry, before we wrap, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share?
For allowing us to be part of this, Latoya. My closing thought on all this is pretty simple, that SBOMs, unlike 18 months or 2 years ago, they're no longer just a concept. They're becoming a mandate in multiple different ways. And the tools like SBOM HQ are how you make them usable, where you can do something with them, as I showed. Whether you're a government agency, a developer, the enterprise CIO, others that we mentioned earlier there, the sooner you get started operationalizing your SBOMs, as Stephanie would refer to it, the stronger your security posture is going to be, without a doubt. You don't want to wait until the next breach like Log4j or SolarWinds really forces your hand. If you act now, your security posture will be much stronger, and you're going to avoid internal organizational disaster. If you do want to see, what this looks like within your organization, we'd love to have the conversation with you directly. Whether you just reach out to us, or even if you go to eracent.com, there is a call to action box there that says try SBOM HQ for free. And if you do that, we would set you up with an instance for that. You could literally sign up today and be managing a dozen of your most important or representative SBOMs by tomorrow. It's that easy. And certainly a lot of guidance and training would come with that. So again, we'd love to continue that conversation with you.
Thank you, Terry. And from our side at the SIE Group, our role is to help organizations navigate this journey, from understanding policy and compliance requirements to implementing practical, scalable solutions. And we are so proud to partner with Eracent on this effort. And we'd love to connect with you one-on-one after today's session to talk through how this applies to your agency or enterprise. And before we officially close, I also want to give a very special shout out to our behind the scenes dream team who has helped this, whole series, this webinar specifically, of course, bring it to life with all that they do, the slides and the logistics. Miss Lori Shrout and Miss Amy Grosso, thank you for your incredible coordination, dedication, and countless details you've handled so seamlessly. We see you and we appreciate you. So thank you again to all the attendees who have joined us today for our Follow into Action webinar. We will send out all of these details with the replay to you all shortly. And again, on behalf of the SIE Group and Eracent, we look forward to continuing the conversation with you. Have a wonderful day and happy fall.